What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Band Chats. I'm sitting here with Scott Law. He is in Australia currently. Scott, how you doing, man? I mean, we were just talking before the podcast that I'm sitting in some snow. What's the weather like there?
Well, actually, for us over here, it's kind of like you guys, really. We've sort of been having summer 1 second, and then it's freezing cold winter the next. Like, I think currently at the moment, I think it's like 30-mile-an-hour winds outside and
Oh man, that's
like
grim.
cold, bit rainy kind of thing. So we've been really weird with weather, but can't really complain, I guess.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's
So
snowed, that's the main bit.
yeah. So it's been a crazy year, man, and we knew that you were gonna try to give a ride for Legion this year and try to come back over to the States. You've kind of always been a big like a fan favorite in the States. How did you even end up like coming to the States in the first place? Like, where did like all that come into play? Because I know a lot of us, like the Americans' dream, at least on the track side of things, to go to Australia, and then on the other side of things,
Yeah.
the road side of things, is to go to Belgium and Europe. So how'd you end up here?
Yeah, so I guess it all kind of started like as a kid, you sort of try and follow that dream of going to Europe and being a professional and doing all that kind of stuff. And so I sort of started going down that path, managed to get myself onto the Ampost Sean Kelly team for a year in Belgium. So I was teammates with guys like Ronan McLaughlin, who I think did have the Everesting record for a second.
Oh yeah.
And then like Sean Bennett as well. Sam Bennett, sorry. Yeah, I was teammates with Sam Bennett for the year and did that and kind of realized that just it wasn't really for me. It was, super full on and being away from home and like not really having any sort of real support around you just made it super difficult. Trying to communicate with anyone was super tough. So I decided to sort of switch gears, come back home for a bit, race a bit at home, and then before all this, I had got a gig with the Flyvee Australia team.
Oh yeah.
So they went over to the state. They'd been over in the States a few years beforehand, and I was on the team in 2011, I believe. And I did races like Tulsa Tough, did like Manhattan Grand Prix, Nature Valley Grand Prix as well, and just fell in love with it, especially Tulsa. I think like every year comes around and Tulsa's been the one that always keeps bringing me back.
Yeah, for sure.
Any race I could do, it's just Tulsa. That's all I want to do. It's just that whole vibe, that whole weekend is just insane to me. So
well, that's awesome. Because like, how would you compare like a Tulsa to like the Shimano crit in Australia?
Yeah, I think like the whole thing, it's just, there's a different sort of thing about it. Like Australia have some like really good criteriums, don't get me wrong, but it's that whole vibe behind it where racing, like for one, racing at night is just so much better, I think, like so much more cooler than like where we sort of do the Shimano crit. It's during the day in an industrial area because that's the only place we can get like permits and stuff to put races on. So we can't put a criterium in the middle of downtown because people would just go nuts and just wouldn't allow it. So
yeah,
for us, we're kind of limited in that kind of range. So that's why I love like doing the American crit scene, is because they know exactly where to put the race. They're going to put it where all the bars and restaurants and stuff, where people are going to come out no matter what, to like even just to go to like have a drink and have dinner or something like that. And all of a sudden a bike race goes past, which is awesome to me.
It's some good feedback. Yeah. Cause like I've always watched the Shimano crit online. It's cause it's usually like, it's usually what, in like December, right? Or is it, when is it?
Yeah.
It's around then.
So it's usually like a week before Christmas, I think. They usually put it on. And like it does get like a good amount of atmosphere there for like a good Australian crit, but it's not quite the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the Bay criteriums, that we do at the start of the year in January, they tend to get a pretty good like sort of feel to them, because there are a couple that are sort of around cafes and restaurants and things like that, but you just don't get that same sort of vibe that you would at a Tulsa Tough or like Manhattan Beach or what else is there, like Boise Crit, like
Have you Athens Twilight? I mean, that's another
yeah.
good one. Yeah, that's another crazy one. So, well, yeah, man. So, like, with just like with the Sam Wellsfords and those Team Pursuit guys over in Australia that race a lot of those bay crits, what would you say depth wise? Would you say the Aussie field, like a Shimano crit, is a heavier depth than a Tulsa, or is it just like because of the carnage at a Tulsa? Because it seems like the crit fields here are a lot bigger, whereas
Oh yeah.
there the talent depth is massive.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably like the contributing factor is
Yeah,
we probably don't have as many people in the field as say the American crits, but the people that we do have in those crits are very talented. And like,
yeah,
not to say that like the crits over there aren't like haven't got the talent that they do, but um yeah, it's like a totally different ball game. And I think also like courses wise, it's um we tend to race on like one single lane road, like super tight, probably like 4 or 5 corners in the crit.
yeah. You guys
Where
got like some turns with like 180s in it.
yeah,
Like, yeah, like I mean, I think like last year I was watching. Who's the tall guy that rides Team Pursuit? Let out Sam Wellsford. Can't think of his name.
Kel O'Brien.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
I mean, it looked like those guys were breaking like full on dead stop and then 60K out of the corner, just
yeah,
standing start every lap. It's unreal.
exactly. Yeah,
It's unreal.
that's kind of our whole kind of thing, is like we're only racing on like super small, narrow roads, tight corners, all that kind of stuff. So it's just super explosive the entire time. Whereas like races in Tulsa and all that kind of stuff, even like Boise Twilight, I swear I don't think I touched my brakes once in that race. Like
Jeez.
you just pedal through every corner and float through, whereas these ones are like slam on the brakes, dive into corners, kick out of the corner, slam the brakes on again, dive into another corner. Like
That's
it's
unreal.
just yeah, it's just super taxing. And our races like only go for an hour, so people tend to think that like I can just go balls to the walls for an hour and
Yeah.
still be able to like get a good result at the end. Whereas like the American crits like probably go for like an hour and a half. So you kind of have to weigh up like, do I spend my energy here, or do I wait here, or do I attack? Do I do this? Like
Yeah.
you can kind of ride yourself into the crit. Whereas these ones are just like, no, like we're going for an hour, full gas, and just hope for the best.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you guys are already back to racing. So what's it been like, man? Just like with COVID and everything. I mean, I'm assuming you watch the news, and I don't want to like dive too deep into politics, but it seems like
Yeah.
America can't really seem to figure shit out. But what's it been like in Australia? Like just with training and racing and kind of for you, man. Like with
It's
COVID and
been
everything.
like it's been good so far. Like we sort of had a pretty big lull like through the middle of the year, just trying to sort ourselves out, and we've sort of slowly been getting back on track, which is kind of good. It's more or less just been like local kind of races, which is kind of nice. Like we've been having a few criteriums during the week, which is really good, and a few like sort of bigger like open style races pop up over the weekend. But yeah, it's kind of been like slow goings, and it's so far been working out pretty well, and everyone seems to be enjoying it. So no real complaints so far.
No, yeah, yeah. No, that's good, man. And kind of like we chatted about in the beginning, like how I found you is, we a lot of I feel like with COVID, it's played a bit on it's given us the time to just sit back and think. It's given us
Yeah,
the time to kind of sit back and almost learn to love the bike again, or learn to love the training process again, or just learn to love it all over again. And I know you through your racing and stuff that you did in the U.S. racing with Elevate, Silence, like that's how I knew you. But I saw a whole new side of you when you came out with that post, which I'll put a link in the description below, guys. Was just talking about mental health. So kind of give me a little bit of an outlook on kind of how that's affected you through the sport and how you've kind of been handling that, I guess, more or less through these times.
Yeah, so probably I'd say, to give a bit of a backstory behind it all. A few years ago, I was happily in a relationship for quite a few years, engaged for a year. Then that all kind of went a bit south, and I had sort of, I guess, pushed it into the back of my brain, thinking, no, I've just got to keep doing what I'm doing.
For sure.
And over the years, sort of kept that kind of mentality of just keep, like, if there's anything pent up, just keep pushing it to the back, because it's you can deal with that later, or deal with it at another time. Like, just keep doing what you're doing and focus on, like, doing, like riding your bike or whatever it may be. And I guess it all sort of came to a head sort of this year when COVID hit. There wasn't much racing going on, and I was sort of just going through the motions day after day, and I just couldn't figure out exactly how or why I sort of felt this certain way, that nothing was really sort of clicking, or I just wasn't feeling like I was 3 or 4 years previously, just enjoying what I was doing and like really embracing life pretty much.
For sure.
And yeah, just one day I was out riding and popped in the what was it called? Put Your Socks On podcast, when they started talking to Mark Cavendish, and listening to that, I just stopped what I was doing, like mid-ride, just pulled off to the side of the road and just sat down and listened to this podcast through its entirety, and just thought, this is exactly how I feel. Like, this, I couldn't put into words exactly how I was feeling or how to express how I was feeling, but this was exactly how I was feeling. I just felt like nothing was really working. I just wasn't feeling the way I should be feeling, but I wanted to be around people, but I didn't want people to get close to me, kind of thing. And just having that outlet to be able to express how I was feeling just opened me up to so many people around me. And like, as soon as I'd stopped listening to it, I just started messaging friends and family, and I just said, look, I've been feeling this sort of way for a while. I can't explain how or why, or I can't express the words to tell you what I'm feeling or what's going on in my head. But if you could please listen to this sort of explains how I'm feeling. And within like 20 seconds after saying that, like, I had tons of messages, people calling me, like saying, like, look, if you ever need help, if you ever need anything, just let us know. And that was sort of the big thing I sort of took away from it, was being in the sport for so long. Like, you just have to like speak out and just talk to anyone and about anything, really. Like, if there's anything troubling you, or if there's anything that's sort of been harboring inside of you, like, it's better to tell someone about it. And we sort of all grow up in that whole mentality of like, no, you're just got to harden up and like, you just push through it all, and like it only makes you stronger, kind of thing. But what kind of makes you stronger is the people around you that are gonna like lift you up when times are like that. And yeah, the amount of support that came back from posting that was just incredible. I couldn't believe it. People that I'd only sort of like met in passing or anything like that were reaching out saying, if there's anything you need, let me know, like, here to help. And yeah, I just couldn't believe like you think that when you're in that sort of mentality that it's just you against yourself trying to fight your way through it. But
That was what I was just about to say. I feel like, I look at a guy like you, super well decorated. I mean, you raced worlds in 2015, all the way from track. So let's start there. I mean, there's probably more way back, but you know, stage wins at the BC Super Week. Like, I mean, tons of race wins under your belt, and winning, I mean, you would think brings nothing but happiness, right?
yeah,
But at the same time, it also just suppresses, because we go to the next week and it's just another bike race. And for a lot of people that don't know you, yeah, I mean, he's won a lot of bike races. He's been a professional. He's been at that level, but he still had that pain. And I think it's even you looking at Cavendish too. It's like the same thing of you just looking at Cavendish and being like, wow, how can this dude feel like this? Like, I mean,
yeah,
just being this guy, this goofy guy. I mean, he from what I've heard, he's a pretty funny dude, and pretty good spirit all the time, for the most part, with his teammates and everything. And it's like, I mean, you can start to see it coming out, like, now is what's
yeah.
starting to happen. So
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely,
it's
yeah.
wild.
And that's kind of how like I had sort of been portrayed as a little as well, like from people that know me as like being this quite upbeat, chatty, like always sort of fun type of guy. And you try and keep up that appearance time and time again to sort of keep people at bay, kind of thing,
Yeah,
to sort of keep up appearances, I guess. And yeah, just trying to find that sort of, yeah, trying to like not let so many people in, or the people, like, yeah, just general people, to let know how you're sort of feeling. It's tough, like, and trying to express how you feel as a person, and not like come across and say, look, I'm vulnerable, I'm not feeling this way, like I'm not feeling as I should be feeling. And you kind of feel like if you were to say that to someone, you'd be letting everyone down. Like,
yeah,
I, I sort of felt that, like, with the people around me. Like, if I were to say that, like, I'm not feeling too good, um, I would be letting a whole bunch of people down. And that was one of the reasons why I had sort of kept quiet for so long. And once I sort of said something, everyone was like, no, like, you should have said something earlier. And that was sort of one of the reasons why I wanted to put that post out, was just to let
everyone
sort
know
of
that.
everyone,
Yeah, like people that you
yeah,
should
that,
have let know, kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
No, that's amazing, man. And I mean, yeah, like it definitely hit me in a soft spot, because, like, I mean, just for me this year, like, I was gonna quit the sport. I broke my collarbone, wasn't going to the Olympics. Like, it was a rough time, and you're broke. Like, if you're trying to go to the Olympics, you're not making any money. So it's like,
Yeah,
and then no health insurance, all this stuff's crashing down around you, and it starts to weigh on you. And so when you see posts like that and other athletes like that, that yeah, you necessarily look up to, or like you aspire to kind of pull results from, like, it's interesting to see these people kind of all in the same spot. I mean, I'm not going to mention any names, but I even had, which is why I was trying to track you down to do this podcast. I had a guy reach out to me and was like, how do you handle um, just your emotions and stuff when the event or whatever you've been training for so long goes south?
yeah,
um, and I didn't even know how to answer it. Like, I don't, and I still don't. Like, I don't know how you manage that. I mean, I used to literally just pack it in and go home and get on the ergo. Like, that was what
yeah.
that's what I did. It wasn't the best thing, and it's not the healthiest thing. So how are you handling that now? If you feel like, I mean, we didn't really talk much about this pre-podcast, so I don't know if you're comfortable with sharing, but like, how are you handling some of these things now? Because I think it'd be good for maybe our younger listeners and even our older listeners, like, that are training seriously, or even just going through some tough times. Like, how are you handling some of this stuff now?
Yeah, like, when I first sort of grew up racing and all that kind of stuff, my my dad was a pretty keen racer, and he got both my brother and I involved in it. And his mentality behind racing and stuff, it was, if it's not fun doing it, then you shouldn't do it at all. And
Yeah.
you should go out and enjoy yourself, no matter what you're doing, where you are. And I, throughout my years, had tried to sort of live by that mentality, but always in the back of my mind, I'd sort of had this feeling of like, no, you've got to be regimented. You've got to be doing like this effort at this time, at this place, and being super committed to that point. And that sort of fun side of things kind of sort of went away after quite a few years. And I think during that sort of period where I did have that relationship breakdown and a lot of other things sort of happened, both like physically and mentally, I had just sort of I just ran out of gas really.
Yeah.
And now sort of coming back full circle, I've sort of said to myself, like, let's just drop, because of COVID sort of happened now, it sort of allowed me, and I think a lot of others, to sort of take a step back and realize like why we do the sport, and why we sort of started doing it. And it's because of the passion and the enjoyment of it. And yeah, just being able to get out on a bike and ride for, whether it be 30 minutes or 3 hours, like, it's, if you get a sense of fulfillment out of that, then that's what you should be doing it for. And that's been my whole, I guess, mantra from like the beginning, is just trying to find the silver linings in everything, and
Sure.
always looking sort of like on the bright side of life kind of thing. So yeah, I think for a lot of younger guys and a lot of people sort of starting in the sport, I think one of the key things is trying to find what you love about the sport, like whether it be a competitive side of things, or whether it's just being out riding your bike in nature and enjoying it. Like, if you get a sense of fulfillment out of that, then don't let anyone else sort of tell you otherwise, what you should or shouldn't be doing. Like, that's what you enjoy doing, then that's what you should do. And yeah, I'm a firm believer in whatever makes you happy is what you should do.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. And so I think that's good feedback. And Scott's been like super open to me, just reaching out to him. So I know if you guys ever had questions, you could definitely reach out to him.
Yeah, by all means. Yeah. Like,
Let's
send me a message on Instagram or whatever. Like, I'm happy to help in any way I can.
yeah. And so and that's awesome. So there's a resource for you guys. But let's dive into, let's start to uplift it. Let's get into some nitty gritty, man. Cause I know you've done
All
some
right.
races. I know you've won some crazy races. What's your craziest Tulsa story? Let's hear it, man. I know you got some crazy Tulsa stories.
Oh man.
what's your favorite experience at Tulsa, and or any crit for that matter, whether it be Speed Week, whether it be Super Week, BC Super Week, Manhattan Beach, you name it. Like, let's hear a crazy story. I know Iman Lucas gave us a crazy one where they ended up at a sorority party in Athens Twilight, which you guys can check out in the podcast below. But yeah,
Yeah.
so
That would have been nice. I mean, I wouldn't have
yeah,
that.
yeah,
I reckon probably one of the craziest ones we had was, what was it, 2018 with Elevate.
yeah,
So yeah, I think we came away with like the overall. I think we won at least 2 of the nights, and yeah. So, and then I won Crybaby Hill that year, and classic like Tulsa Tough Sunday night. Everyone goes to Sound Pony kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
The line was like down the corner, like pretty much where the start line was for the crit itself. That's pretty much where the line was to get into this place. We waited for like an hour, I reckon, to get into Sound Pony. But
Yeah.
by the time we got in, one of my teammates, Kevin Gherkins, he's already in there. And he's literally, as soon as I've taken one step in the door, he's grabbed me by the collar and just pulled me to the bar. And I'm like, okay, all right, what's going on here? He spins me around, slams me onto the back of the bar, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? The waitress or like the bartender standing over the top of me with like Fireball or something, and just starts chugging it down my throat. It's like split second into the bar.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, cool. All right, so I guess we're on then. All right,
game
sweet.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So, so like after many drinks after that, somehow ended up at some girl's like apartment on the rooftop with like the rest of like, I can't remember who else we had there. I think there was like 10 or 12 of us somehow ended up on this girl's like rooftop. And yeah, we stayed there for God knows how long. I can't remember when we finished up there, but yeah, I've had a few decent parties like that, I guess. I do actually probably not. Oh, I probably could talk about it, but I could also get in trouble for it. But
how about, can we change names? Would that make it better? Would the name changing of the story make it better? So we can give me, is it 2 guys, 2 girls, 3 people? What? I'll give you
no,
names.
it's more the place and the team I was part of is kind of like a bit.
Okay.
But let's just say I was representing someone.
Okay.
And we were in Europe.
Okay.
And we ended up having a few too many adult beverages during the day. Then the one and only time that I was in this country, I got to miss out on looking at probably the thing that they're most famous for. So, end up passing out in our hotel room. Woke up at about 10 o'clock, only to realize that we missed the team meeting that night. And the entire team had gone out to look at like their famous like landmark.
Yeah.
And yeah, subsequently it all sort of came back to us and we all got in a lot of trouble. So
oh man, that's wild.
And I think that might have been the end of my track career after that.
Yeah. You Aussies have like I always hear the craziest stories about Australians. Like in T-Town, I heard that like they were the roughest bunch. Like those were the guys, they were the fastest and the roughest bunch. And like
I feel like I kind of contributed to some of those stories.
Yeah, and then the
I always had this sort of thing about anytime like we sort of finished a big event and everyone was going out for a few drinks or whatever, I sort of brought it upon myself to, I guess, initiate the young kids. Group. So the young ones that had just turned 18 were sort of coming out with us and we're like, okay, who hasn't been out in a bar before? And we get 1 or 2 put their hands up and I'm like, all right, I'm going to go stitch you up now.
Man.
A drink after drink after drink. Eventually it turned into me stitching myself up. And like I'd wake up the next morning with a $500 bill on my like credit card or something. Like, oh, why did I do that?
Yeah.
And then also we get a lot of good stories out of it. So it was kind of like
good times, good fun. Yeah, I mean that's what makes track racing fun. I mean, there's always good times and good parties. Somebody told me that I should change this podcast to like World Cup horror stories and try to change names. And I was like, man, the only people that would listen to this is like the people that go to like the athletes from the World Cups. And I couldn't get any guests on. Like they would all be blacked out. They wouldn't want to say anything. Oh yeah, man, it'd be nuts. But anyways, so we're coming up close to time. And so I wrap up every podcast one thing. And it's essentially, if you could have a cup of coffee with anybody, dead or alive, how would you take your coffee? And if you don't drink coffee, it can be tea, a beer, scotch, whiskey, whatever. And who would you have it with?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I would say if I were to have a cup of coffee, it would be, well, I'm guessing it's probably going to be a long sit down. So
it's like a long chat. Like it's not like you just go in and say hey. It's like a sit down, like get to know somebody. So like Justin did Kobe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Hmm. I guess it'd be I would go I would go my dad.
Yeah,
I mean, like I see my dad just about every other day, but we always talk and we always like he's always been one of my role models
that's
ever since
awesome.
I was a little kid and growing up and any chance I sort of get to spend time with him is always a blessing for me. And I I would probably say I would get something like I'm gonna get like a tall soy, like double or triple shot, like flat white or something like that.
Oh
Something
yeah.
that's kind of like a milkshake, but then you'd have the soy milk so it doesn't feel as bad. Like,
And for you Americans that don't know what a flat white is, it's not a cappuccino and it's not a latte. That's all I can really tell you. So,
yeah,
so that's
it's like a
it's
hybrid of the two,
it's a
but
hybrid of the two, but you can't call them either. So,
yeah,
yeah, so that's what that is. Well, cool, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Guys, like I said, if you can just check in the link in the description below for Scott's social media. And yeah, if you guys, like I said, we said previously, if you ever have issues or if you ever need anybody, just talk. Even if you wanted to reach out to either one of us or anybody for that matter, just reach out, have that communication, and because it's going to come up eventually. So don't hold on to it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks very much for having me. And yeah, by all means, if anyone's got any questions, shoot me a message, and yeah, I'll be happy to answer them.
Awesome. Well, thanks, man. Cheers.
Thank you.